Hello again everyone, welcome to part 2 of the painting tutorial for the Bandai Star Destroyer plastic model kit. Now, it looks a bit different, doesn't it? So we've gone over, I have painted the darker Tamiya colour, so that was the XF19, the sky grey, so I've gone over, I've painted that onto the model. It's probably looking a bit too dark at this point, but that's alright, and that's not too bad. So that's all on there. I've then gone and given it a very, very light spray, first of a couple that I'll do with the Hobby Colour, or Mr. Hobby 332, which is this guy here. So I've gone over and given it a coat with that, and that's a bit more noticeable. The transition between the two colours on the superstructure is really not all that bright on the camera. It's very subtle in real life, so it does give it just a tiny bit more depth, and you can actually see it quite well on the left hand side there. You see where my finger's casting a shadow, so my light's coming from the left, and you can see the darker areas in there on the well lit side. Right, so that's just that little effect that I was trying to get with the Mr. Hobby and the Tamiya colour there, so it actually shows up quite well in that shot there. Not too bad. And bearing in mind, as I said, I'm lighting from the left hand side of the screen, so you shouldn't really have that much shadow there. One thing to note when you're sort of going over with your top colours is to spray from above the model if you can. So try and face it. So if the airbrush, I'll move the model so the airbrush is sort of spraying down on that angle. That way you're not going to fill all these areas, the darker areas that we want to keep dark with paint. You'll get a little bit of overspray in there, sure. Yep, that's going to happen, especially if you're not masking it off or anything like that. That's going to happen, but that's okay because we want it to pick up the sort of higher areas in there. That's not too bad. But yeah, don't spray it directly at those surfaces, otherwise it will definitely fill up with the lighter colour paint. Just to give you a quick look at the underside. So the underside's done the same. Not as noticeable in there because you really just don't have the superstructure or on the rear. See if we can get it. Yeah, see, it's just not showing up. It's a very, very subtle effect. So if you do that at home, you know, there is a tonal difference between the two, but you don't want it too drastic. It should become a little bit more pronounced as we continue on and paint with the lighter colours, which we will do in a minute. Alright, so once again, thanks for watching. Bear with me guys, because this is my first tutorial and I'm working with the camera stand in front of me and I'm trying to work everything out and get it going. So let's get started on this next one when I come straight back. Okie dokie. So all I've done in the meantime is I've just mixed a little bit more paint with a bit of white Tamiya. So it's the same Mr. Hobby colour, the 332, and I've only just put, you know, sort of one or two little tiny drops of white paint in there from the Tamiya. And all I want to do with this, and once again I hope the effect is more noticeable than it seems to be on the camera, what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to go in there and lightly hit those high areas. So you see that there? Just on the front there, just to get the higher areas just to sort of pop a little bit more. We don't want a huge coating. It's just adding to that effect of depth that we're trying to accomplish overall. And I'm not doing, you know, heavy sprays. I'm just doing very, very light brushes over, and I'm keeping the pattern fairly irregular. So I'm sweeping back and forth a fair bit, but I'm keeping a distance between the sweeps. So I'm not doing solid patterns, so it's a little bit streaky, a little bit wavy, and I'm working from left to right. The reason why I'm doing that is just to give it a little bit of a different feel to the paint. So you see that there, a little bit of change in the tone. Helps with the weathering later on, just makes it look a little bit, you know, a little bit different. It's not all uniform, it's not all you know, brand spanking new out of the space dock. So we will probably lose most of this effect, most of the effect which I just tried to create with the subsequent layers of paint, but on little areas like that there, it'll stand out quite well. We'll just hit that again, just on the side again. So you see the angle I'm coming in, I'm sort of coming in from very high up on, so I'm not filling those areas with paint. I'm coming up very high, painting across the surface. Alright, so hit those. Okay, let's go to the back, and I'll sort of hit these raised areas in the centre, and off the sides. Okay, sorry guys, I'm sort of filming off centre there, forgive me. So what I've done is just hit this section here, and these little raised areas there. See, I'm not a professional. As if there was any doubt already. Alright, so keep going. Just streaking it back and forth. Very, very subtle. Alright. And it's the little subtle changes which will make a difference later on, hopefully. When we paint it. Now, we'll probably lose most, as I was saying, we'll probably lose most of this effect on the subsequent layers, but I like to know that it's there at least. Hopefully, on the top of the model, you can see what I was aiming for. I'm just going to turn that compressor off, sorry. So you can see what I was aiming for there. Little raised areas, you know, nice and a bit lighter than what they were before. Once again, it's not showing up 100%, but I'm sure you can see some of the effect of what I was going for, and I'll just keep going back and hitting it because I love doing this. But just really gives it that little bit of depth. Okay. And we're just going to squirt something under the conning tower there. We don't want a massive shadow from the bridge section. Don't want to look too uniform. Alright, there we go. Now you can see that contrast on the left there showing up a bit better. Alright, move it across the right. Yeah, it's still not too bad, but it just shows up nicely on that angle. And that's, you know, what we're going for. And we'll do other things to that a little bit later on, but sort of laying it in with the paint initially helps. It's just changing the paint out in the airbrush all the time, which is a bit of a pain on the smaller model. But that's alright. We're getting there, and I'm just going to hit pause again, and we'll come back with the next sequence. Alrighty, back again. Now, I'm looking at this kit, I'm looking at the model, and I think I've probably gone a little bit too dark, but we'll find out, won't we? So we're going to keep going and we'll find out what the end result looks like. But we're going to continue on. And you remember earlier when I said I have these wonderful, we'll just zoom out, I have these wonderful super thin masking tape packets, and these ones are 2mm and 1mm and 3mm and etc, etc, etc. Time to start putting some of these on, I think. So we're not going to do a huge amount, but I've gotten some ready on the side there, and we're just going to start cutting them up. Just grab my scalpel. Now you can do it with scissors, you can do it with a scalpel, whatever you want to do. I think because I've got the camera there, this method's probably going to be a bit easier. I'm just going to quickly demonstrate what I plan to do, what I want to do with these. So I'm just trimming some of the mask now. And lift up. There we go. Excuse my hand. Okie dokes. Alright. So, in the first part, part one, was just saying we're gonna lay the mask, but we're gonna do it down the length of the model. Alright, so we're gonna do it assuming that little ridge in the bit is the center spine. We want everything to sort of line up off that center spine. It doesn't mean we have to hug the center spine when we're putting stuff in, but we want all the squares, all the corners of the squares. So this is my little square. We want them all to sort of have an edge running along in parallel with that. Alright, so it just looks neater. The model's already like that with the raised details, so let's keep that theme going. Alright, and we're just going to very carefully use my scalpel here. I'll just reset this. Hold on a second. Alright, and you use toothpick, use scalpel, whatever you're comfortable using, doesn't really matter. And we'll just zoom in a bit on that so you can see it a bit better. Alright, so I'm just going to lay this. I'm going to try and avoid some of the raised detail. See, I just tap it onto the model. I've only just got the slightest bit of the blade on it, so it'll just sit down. Alright, and we'll just move that into position. A bit down like that, and I am happy with that. Alright, so that is in position. Now we're going to continue on. We'll lay a couple more so you can see. Now I'll press these down a little bit better, either with a toothpick or with my finger a little later, just to make sure that they're gripping the surface nicely. Excuse my hand again, everybody. Just to make sure they're gripping the surface nicely. and that we don't get any overspray or anything like that underneath them. Now remember, trying to keep it in line with the spine, right? So I've got my edge there. I'll just zoom in. I need a camera operator. Anyone want to fly to Victoria, Melbourne, Australia, and Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, and be my camera operator? That'd be fantastic. Alright. Put that down. You see that bit of paper's a bit wonky. Alright, that's okay. We'll fix that up later. Alright, when we press everything down. It's important to give it a good sort of 15 minutes to 20 minutes minimum drying time before you apply this stuff, because it will lift paint if it hasn't dried properly. But putting it down over a properly cured paint, I've never had, at least the Tamiya, I've never had any in the Tamiya range lift up anything that I've worked on. I've tried in the past. I've tried some automotive mask tape, which is meant to be, virtually the same, and they use it in the automotive industry very well with acrylics too. But I just had no luck with it. So as you can see, we're protecting this layer of paint, and we're going to go lighter on top of this once these are done. I'm going to be putting quite a few of these on with each stage. So let's just continue on here and just apply them randomly. As long as we're following that center section, they shouldn't look too bad. Alright. Okay, see that there? And we'll just keep doing that, and that'll give us a nice effect on the surface on both the top and the bottom when we go through that. Now I'm not going to make you watch me do the whole thing, because that's going to take a little while. It'll take me probably 20 minutes to mask up. Well, probably not that long, probably half that time to mask up for this colour, and then we'll spray the next one down and continue on from there. Alright, so I'll probably make this part 2 and video part 2, and we'll continue on with part 3 shortly. Alright, thanks.